You know the exact feeling. It's incredibly specific, and honestly, it's incredibly frustrating.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. You have this beautiful, like, perfectly constructed English sentence built entirely inside your head.
Yes. The perfect sentence.
You've mentally checked the grammar, you've picked the most precise vocabulary, and it's just sitting there in your mind, shining like this fragile little glass sculpture.
That is a great way to describe it.
But then, the exact moment you open your mouth to actually say that sentence to another human being, it's like someone suddenly presses the mute button on a remote control.
Just completely muted yet.
Your heart rate spikes, your mind goes completely blank, and instead of that beautiful, polished sentence, you point something and mumble, yeah.
It's a universal experience.
Yeah,
And honestly, it can feel completely paralyzing when it happens to you in real time.
it really can. And that is exactly why we're here today. Welcome to this deep dive. Our mission for you in this session is straightforward, but genuinely life-changing.
Truly life-changing, yeah.
We're going to help you move from overthinking everything inside your head to actually speaking out loud and taking confident action in your daily life.
Which is huge.
It is, and we've spent time distilling insights from a really rich stack of educational sources today. They focus on language learning, daily routines, habit building, and dismantling that heavy perfectionism that keeps our mouths shut.
Because that perfectionism is heavy.
It is. So, okay, let's unpack this. Why is it that our heads are full of brilliant, complex ideas, but when it's time to speak, we just freeze up?
Well, before we can fix the freezing, we really have to look under the hood. We need to understand the mechanics of why our brains decide to just, shut down the connection in the first place.
Right. Why does it happen?
Because the most important thing to realize right off the bat is that it's not a vocabulary problem.
Oh, wow. Wait, really?
Really. You aren't freezing because you don't know the words. You're actually experiencing a biological and emotional threat response.
Okay, let's ground this in a real-world scenario from the sources. We'll call it the bakery story.
Oh, I love this example.
Right. So imagine you're visiting a bakery in another country. You're standing in line, and you can smell the bread, you can hear the chatter.
Sounds lovely.
It does. And you mentally rehearse your sentence, like maybe 100 times. Can I have that chocolate cake, please? Can I have that chocolate cake, please?
And it sounds flawless in your head.
Flawless. But then it's your turn. You step up to the counter. The baker looks at you and fires off a rapid question in English.
And boom.
Instantly, all that perfect practice just vanishes.
Right. And to understand the how of that vanishing act, we have to look at how your brain manages its processing power. It's a lot like a computer's RAM,
Oh, like temporary memory.
Exactly. What happens in that bakery moment is that an internal alarm system gets triggered. The sources describe the source of this alarm as the strict teacher.
The strict teacher. That sounds intense.
It is. This is an internalized voice born from old, painful memories. Maybe you mispronounced a word in middle school, and the whole classroom laughed at you.
Ugh, the worst.
Or maybe a real teacher corrected you in a humiliating way.
So the brain is basically holding onto that emotional memory and treating a casual bakery interaction as a high-stakes threat.
Exactly. Your eyes see a baker holding a pastry, but your nervous system feels the threat of that old classroom judgment.
Ah, that makes so much sense.
Right. The strict teacher in your head starts sounding the alarm. Danger. You're going to make a mistake. They're going to laugh at you.
So it's basically a panic button.
Yes. When your brain detects what it thinks is a social threat, it initiates a kind of amygdala hijack. It instantly opens a massive high-alert security program in the background to keep you safe from embarrassment.
And because that security program takes up all your mental RAM, there's literally no processing power left to run your language application.
Precisely. The higher-level thinking areas, like the prefrontal cortex where you store complex grammar rules and vocabulary, they just crash.
Wow.
Your brain prioritizes basic survival over speaking perfectly. That is why you revert to pointing and grunting cake.
That reframes the whole experience. We aren't failing, we're just fighting an overactive protection system.
That's exactly right.
And the sources connect this neurological overthinking to two other major roadblocks, the fear of failure and what they call time thieves.
Yes, the time thieves.
We spend so much mental energy polishing our sentences, waiting for the exact perfect moment to jump into a conversation without making a mistake.
And the irony is, while you're waiting for that flawless opening, you're letting those time thieves steal the actual opportunity to connect.
Because it takes too long.
Right. By the time you've fully polished your sentence and gathered the courage to speak, The conversation has moved on to a completely different topic.
And your perfect sentence is suddenly irrelevant.
Yep, it's gone.
It's just like waiting for the perfect bus. You stand at the station, a bus rolls up, and you look at it and say, no, not this one. It looks a little crowded. I might have to stand.
That's a great analogy.
And then the next one arrives, and you think, no, not this one either. It's a bit older. It doesn't look very comfortable. You keep rejecting every single option because it isn't flawless.
Always waiting for the perfect ride.
Exactly. And eventually, the sun goes down, the buses stop running, and you're left standing alone in the dark while the whole world has moved forward.
It's a stark image, but
Yep.
I mean, it highlights the cost of perfectionism perfectly. If you demand a flawless ride, you'll never leave the station.
So true.
So the logistical question becomes, if real-world conversations trigger this strict teacher and cause our mental RAM to crash, how are we supposed to practice getting better? We obviously can't just avoid speaking forever.
Right, which leads us to the solution. We have to create a safe mode for ourselves.
Mode, I like that.
Yeah, if we keep with the tech analogy, it's like booting your computer up with only the essential drivers so the background malware doesn't crash the system.
Right, right.
The sources offer a fantastic, grounded metaphor for this. Dancing at a party.
Oh, this is a very apt comparison. Because, I mean, if you have absolutely no rhythm and have never danced a day in your life, you don't try to learn your very first steps in the middle of a crowded nightclub.
With 100 strangers staring at you. Of course not. You'd be paralyzed.
Exactly.
You close the door to your bedroom. You turn on a song you know by heart. You practice alone, maybe in front of a mirror.
Right, where it's safe.
Yeah, you're going to look a little uncoordinated. You're going to miss the beat. But nobody is watching.
Yeah.
You get comfortable moving your body to the music first.
Because that way, when you finally go to the actual party, stepping onto the dance floor doesn't trigger that massive threat response.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here is that low-pressure practice fundamentally short-circuits the amygdala hijack we talked about earlier.
Oh, how so?
Well, when you're alone in your room, talking out loud to a mirror, or just recording a voice note for a safe friend, you remove the social threat vector. There are no grades. There's no test.
And no judgment.
Zero judgment. So your brain's security system stays dormant, which means 100% of your mental RAM is available to practice the language application.
That is so cool. But let's look at the reality of our listeners' lives for a second. I can hear someone thinking right now, a low-pressure safe mode sounds great, but I work 50 hours a week. I'm studying. I'm managing a household.
It's a lot.
I don't have a spare hour every day to stand in front of my mirror and give speeches to myself.
It's a very valid pushback. I mean, time is our most heavily guarded resource. But the sources address this by introducing the concept of pocket time.
Pocket time, I love the sound of that.
It's great. We often think we need massive, uninterrupted blocks of time to make progress. But think of your time like currency. You might not have a big, shiny 1-hour gold coin to spend on language learning,
Right.
but you almost certainly have dozens of small 5-minute silver coins scattered throughout your day.
Oh, like those little transitional moments, like when you're standing at the bus stop or waiting for the kettle to boil to make your morning coffee.
Exactly. You just need to spend one of those 5-minute coins. But beyond just finding random moments, the sources highly recommend capturing your morning routine.
Why the morning?
Because the morning represents a blank page for your nervous system. Before the stress of emails and commutes hits you, you have a brief window to prime your brain.
Which is, sadly, the exact opposite of what most of us do. The impulse is to wake up, grab the phone off the nightstand, and just start doom scrolling.
Oh, the doom scrolling, yeah.
Right, checking the news or social media. And when you do that, you're letting a time thief steal your focus right out of the gate.
You really are.
You're voluntarily loading your brain's RAM with stress and distraction before you've even had a glass of water.
You're setting a chaotic baseline. But instead, you can use those first 10 minutes to run a low-pressure mental warm-up. A small breakfast for your mind, if you will.
I love that. A small breakfast for the mind.
The sources break it down into 4 simple steps. Listen, speak, write, and review.
Okay, walk us through that.
Sure. Listen to 2 minutes of English audio. Speak just 1 or 2 sentences out loud while you pour your coffee. There's your safe mode practice. Write down a single thought about your intention for the day and review 1 vocabulary word you encountered yesterday.
That feels so manageable. It's a deliberate, gentle way to boot up your English brain without waking the strict teacher.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're utilizing our safe mode. We're spending our 5-minute coins. But what exactly should the content of that practice be? Because honestly, if I'm standing by the coffee maker trying to memorize complex academic essays, I feel like I'm still going to freeze up when I talk to the
Oh,
baker.
you absolutely will. Trying to talk like a book is just perfectionism wearing a different disguise.
Talk like a book. Yeah, that's a trap.
We need to abandon the idea of delivering long monologues. The sources suggest we need to equip ourselves with tiny, reliable tools instead of complex machinery.
Let's open up that toolkit. The first essential tool the sources highlight are reaction words.
Reaction words are lifesavers.
They really are. When someone is speaking to you in a real-world scenario, you don't need to fire back with a flawlessly constructed paragraph. You can rely on small, instinctual signals that show you're engaged.
Like what?
Phrases like, "Oh, really? No way," or "That's difficult."
From a cognitive standpoint, reaction words are incredibly strategic. I mean, their primary function isn't just to be polite. Their secret function is to buy you processing time.
Buying time, yes.
When someone tells you a story and you respond with, "Oh, wow, no way," you've successfully fulfilled the social contract of the conversation. The other person feels heard.
And validated.
Right. But internally, you've just bought your brain 3 to 4 precious seconds to clear its RAM,
Yeah.
process what they just said, and form your next actual thought.
It's an authorized stall tactic. I love thinking about it that way.
It really is.
And the second tool in the kit is what the sources call ready phrases. These are slightly longer utilitarian sentences that you practice so relentlessly in your safe mode that they become pure muscle memory.
Muscle memory is key here.
Right. Things like, "Could you repeat that for me? Can I ask a quick question?" Or "Let me make sure I understand."
If we look at ready phrases through the lens of behavioral psychology, it maps perfectly onto the systems versus goals framework, specifically the 1% rule.
Oh, the 1% rule. How does that connect?
Well, having a massive overarching goal, like I want to be perfectly fluent, is actually a terrible objective
Really? Why?
because it's so vast and undefined. It lacks any mechanism for execution. It's just overwhelming. But building a daily system where you practice just 3 ready phrases while waiting for your coffee, that is a mechanism.
It's actionable.
Exactly. It's improving your capability by 1% a day. And the compounding interest of those tiny systems leads to massive behavioral change over time.
I have to push back a little here, though, on behalf of anyone who has to use their English in a professional setting.
Okay, let's hear it.
If I'm sitting in a high-stakes meeting or even just trying to impress a new group of friends, isn't relying on, "Oh, really," going to make me sound, well, a bit basic? Doesn't it hide my actual intelligence and personality?
It's an incredibly common fear. And it's completely understandable. We want our spoken language to reflect our internal complexity.
Exactly.
But we have to return to the core hierarchy of communication. Progress comes before confidence. Yes, "oh really" is simple.
hmm
But an imperfect, simple spoken sentence is infinitely more valuable than a complex, perfect, silent one.
Because silence doesn't communicate intelligence.
Exactly. If you stay silent in a meeting because you're terrified of sounding basic, your colleagues don't think, "Wow, they must be constructing a brilliant grammatical masterpiece in their head."
No, they don't.
They just think you aren't paying attention, or worse, that you don't care. If you jumped in with a simple reaction word, you are actively participating. You are on the dance floor.
Right.
You can learn the complex choreography later, but first you have to prove to yourself that you can step onto the floor without the world ending.
An imperfect spoken sentence is infinitely more valuable than a perfect silent one. That is the core truth of this whole session.
Absolutely.
So we've got our toolkit, we have reaction words to buy us time, and ready phrases built on muscle memory. We know how to leverage pocket time in safe mode.
Yes, all good steps.
But to maintain this consistency over months and years, we have to officially fire that strict teacher living in our heads. We need a fundamental mindset shift.
We do. And this requires reprogramming how your brain filters reality.
Sounds complicated. How does that work?
The sources delve into a neurological network called the reticular activating system, or the RAS. It's a bundle of nerves at our brainstem that acts as a gatekeeper.
A gatekeeper for what?
For sensory data. At any given second, millions of bits of data are hitting your brain. You can't process all of it, so the RAS filters out the noise and only lets through information that aligns with your active focus.
So how does that gatekeeper interact with our language anxieties?
It's the engine behind confirmation bias. If you constantly let the strict teacher dictate your internal monologue, saying things like, "I always freeze, my English is terrible, people are judging me," your RAS accepts that as the primary directive.
Oh, wow.
It says, "Understood. Our focus is our own failure." It will then actively scan your environment and highlight every tiny grammar mistake, every confused look from a stranger, and present it to you as hard proof that you are failing.
That is
To
terrifying.
literally filter out the memory of all the times you communicated successfully.
So your own neurology becomes an accomplice to your anxiety. What is the instruction we should be giving the RAS instead?
The sources suggest a really compelling reframe for this. We need to completely drop the phrase, "my skills are terrible," and replace it with, "I am under construction."
Under construction, I like
It's
that.
a brilliant psychological pivot. When you look at a building site downtown, what do you see? There's scaffolding everywhere, the street is blocked off, there's dust and noise. It's messy.
Very messy.
But you don't look at that site and think, what a worthless, broken building.
Right, because the visual cues of the scaffolding signal that the mess is intentional. It means work is actively happening and progress is being made.
Exactly.
And most importantly, it signals that the current state is temporary. It's allowed to be messy because it isn't finished yet.
Giving yourself that permission to be messy is the key to dismantling the strict teacher. When you tell your RAS, "I am under construction," you shift your focus from demanding immediate perfection to recognizing incremental progress. You start noticing the small wins.
Now, we want to pause for a second. We're turning directly to you, the person listening to this right now.
Yes, yeah.
The sources we reviewed today have a specific exercise, and we want to ask you for a tiny favor. It's a small piece of mental homework today.
Just a tiny favor.
Here is the question. What is one situation where you always overthink and stay quiet?
Just let that question hang in your mind for a moment. What is one situation where you consistently overthink and retreat into silence?
Is it ordering coffee at that one specific cafe? Is it during the weekly Zoom sync with your department head?
Or is it when you try to chat with your bilingual neighbor in the hallway?
Try to visualize that specific place. Picture the lighting, the people, the feeling in your chest.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, answering this question, pinning down the exact parameters of your anxiety, is the first step in disarming it.
Bringing it out into the light.
Right. When you identify the specific trigger that crashes your mental RAM, you expose the invisible ropes holding you back. And once you can see the ropes, you can bring your tools to cut them.
You can craft one specific ready phrase tailored exactly for that Zoom meeting and practice it in safe mode until it's bulletproof.
Exactly. It's about moving from vague anxiety to a targeted strategy.
To help lock all of these concepts into place, we're going to take a quick walk through a vocabulary tour. We want to ensure these ideas remain sharp and accessible in your mind long after you take your headphones off.
Let's do it. Let's review the 4 core concepts that serve as the foundation of everything we've explored today.
Awesome. First up, we have overthinking.
So in our context, this isn't just being thoughtful, it's a threat response. Overthinking is when your internal strict teacher perceives social danger, triggering an alarm that consumes your mental RAM, disconnects your language processing, and leaves you stuck on mute.
Okay, and next is the antidote to that threat response. Low pressure.
Right. Low pressure defines a relaxed environment meticulously stripped of social stakes. It's your safe mode.
Like practicing in the mirror.
Exactly. Whether it's speaking to the mirror or talking to yourself while making breakfast, it's a scenario with zero judgment, no stress, and no tests. It allows your brain to practice complex skills without the security alarm blaring. It's where you learn the dance steps in private.
Got it. Then we have the 2 critical items in our tactical toolkit. First, ready phrases.
Ready phrases are those highly utilitarian sentences that you drill relentlessly during your low-pressure practice.
So they become automatic.
Yes. Because they rely on muscle memory rather than active processing, they bypass the brain's RAM limitations. They are ready in your mouth, ready to deploy the moment you feel yourself starting to freeze.
And lastly, the simplest but perhaps most effective tool, reaction words.
Reaction words are those small, quick, instinctual signals like, "oh really," or "wow," that you use to show active listening.
Buying us that precious time.
Precisely. Their primary function isn't just politeness, it's cognitive relief. They give you crucial seconds to think and process the incoming language without breaking the flow of the conversation.
Overthinking, low pressure, ready phrases, and reaction words, these aren't just concepts, they are your new operating system.
I love that. A new operating system.
We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today. We moved from the panic of the bakery line to the strategic safety of dancing in your room. We dismantled the neurological alarm system of the strict teacher, and we brought in the scaffolding of an under-construction mindset.
It's a significant mental shift, and it's vital to remember that rewiring your brain's threat response takes time.
Yeah, it really does.
Be patient with yourself. Rely on your systems. Spend those 5-minute silver coins when you can. And recognize that giving yourself grace and getting some rest is a required part of the journey.
You're already doing the work just by showing up and engaging with this material.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up this session, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. We've spent this entire time talking about how perfectionism and the strict teacher ruin our ability to speak a second language. But think about this. If lowering the stakes and utilizing safe mode is the master key to unlocking language fluency, where else in your life is the strict teacher cutting your Wi-Fi?
Oh, that's a profound question.
Right, because the brain doesn't just freeze when we try to speak English.
Huh.
Are you holding back from pitching an innovative idea at work because the proposal isn't perfect yet?
Or putting off learning to code.
Yeah. Or starting a fitness routine or picking up an instrument because you don't want to look foolish in the beginner phase.
The mechanism is exactly the same. The fear of looking messy prevents the building from ever being constructed.
Exactly. If your goals are always under construction and imperfect action is always better than perfect silence, what will your very first messy, imperfect sentence be today? Identify that area where you need to step onto the dance floor, take a deep breath, and let yourself be messy.
Be kind to yourselves out there.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Talk to you next time.